Hello friends, today it's my birth story video, not my birth story. I was the one who's delivering about the birth story of my second baby, my son Isaac, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I have not been doing anything on this English channel for a while now, and I'm really sorry. It's been a month since I've given birth. I've still been posting on my French channel really regularly. I'll put the link in the info bar just in case you don't already follow over there. You can go on and go sign up if you'd like, go subscribe, whatever. But so basically, if you're new here and you don't know who I am Patricia. I'm an American who grew up in America, came to France for study abroad, fell in love, married a French man, and has stayed in France since, and I just delivered and had a baby for the second time in France. So basically, if you followed along with my story, I had really frequent, sometimes very painful, sometimes just normal contractions starting about 26 weeks. And I'm not even talking like, oh, coming every 5 minutes regularly. Like I'd have episodes where for 8 or 9 hours the entire day, every 2 minutes I'd be contracting, and it was awful. Even when they weren't painful, it's still like really uncomfortable, and it was just not getting better. And I would ask the doctor, and like one time she was like, are you sure it's not just the baby moving? And I just wanted to like, because no, definitely not just the baby moving. If you hook me up to a monitor, you will see these are like real, like legit labor contractions. It sucked, and I went all the way up to 40 weeks, and I don't remember, like 5 days, something like that. I was going to be at 41 weeks in a few days. In France, they do not induce until you're about 42 weeks unless there's a medical reason and you really need to for your health or for the babies. So moving on, getting on with the story here. The day before I delivered, I actually went into labor and delivery just to check because I hadn't felt baby move for quite a while, and he was extremely active towards the end, so I was a little bit worried and kind of on a let's just check just in case. It's better to be safe than sorry kind of a thing. As what happens with most of these stories, I went in, they hooked me up to the monitoring machine thing to check the contractions, check to see if baby was moving, etc. And about 15 minutes into it, baby started, dancing, having a little party in there. And so I was like, oh, well, okay, I came for nothing, but I'm glad I went just in case. And the midwife came in and she was like, okay, we aren't gonna send you home yet. We're gonna keep you hooked up onto the monitoring team for a little while because you have really frequent contractions. And I was like, yes, I do. If you have any solutions, any at all, I will take them. At this point, it had been an almost daily thing for about 14 weeks. It was horrible. I was so ready to be done because you can't really do anything when you're contracting that often, even if they aren't like the full-blown labor contractions, even if they're just like really like the tight, like pinching, like, oh, and you can't breathe for like 30 seconds contraction. You can't go grocery shopping while you're doing that. You can't chase a 2-year-old around. I mean, it sucked basically. I need to stop complaining. There's people in worse circumstances, but it's something I went through that I really didn't appreciate and nobody ever talks about. But when I started talking about it, I had tons of other women on my French channel who were like, I have the same thing and I don't know what to do. Okay, moving on. I go on tangents often, sorry about that. Basically, she came back in after they'd been monitoring for a while and she was like, oh my gosh, you had a contraction that lasted for 4 minutes. Let's see if anything happened. And she was like, nope, you're still completely closed up, so I guess we can send you home. And I was like, please. I was like, at this point, I am willing to do anything to get this baby out. Can I go walking? If I start having these like really long and bad contractions, is there anything I can do to get it going? The old wives' tales and things. And she was basically like, no. Labor is induced with hormones, so you can have as many contractions as you want. You can do things that will induce contractions, but they won't induce labor unless your body also releases the right hormones at the right time. And so anything else you do is just gonna probably tire you out more and is not worth the effort at this point. So like, great. And then I asked her about, I was like, please, can we at least talk about induction? Like I'm almost at 41 weeks. I'm really done with this. It's very painful. I had a contraction that lasted 4 minutes. I'm not saying my contractions were 4 minutes, like in between each contraction. No, like the contraction itself lasted 4 minutes. And she goes, no, because of the position of the baby, his head is still really high. If we like were to induce you or if we were to break your waters or anything right now artificially, you would probably need a C-section. It wouldn't go over very well. So obviously that's not what I wanted, but I went home and I cried a little bit because I was so done. And the next day I had my mother-in-law who was here to help take care of my daughter in case I went into labor at any minute. And then I also had my husband who was home because it was a Saturday, so he was off work and I was having a lazy day as well. Everybody in the house took a nap that afternoon, and when I got up from the nap, like I sat up and the baby gave a huge kick and I felt a little pop right where his little foot had like hit at the top of my stomach, and liquid came out. So I got really excited. I told my husband, who was sleeping next to me, like, you have to wake up. I think my water's broke. You need to go get me a towel so I can stand up without having it go everywhere. And he came back, brought me the towel and everything. He's like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, you're never really sure with this kind of a thing, because I've heard so many stories of women who get all excited and then they go in and they test the liquid and it's something else. So I was like, okay, we're just keeping fingers crossed, but who knows? So I get to the hospital. I'm super excited. Very, very hopeful at this point. The midwife checked me. She said, your waters didn't break entirely, but they have fissured a little bit. They've opened up a bit. So we will be keeping you. You do need to go into labor within the next 24 hours or we'll have to induce you just to avoid the risk of infection and all that. And you get to stay. So I was so excited. And they hooked me up onto the monitoring and I was having contractions that were lasting a minute long and coming every 2 minutes. And she was like, wow, like you really are like gonna go soon. And I was like, no, like I have been like this for weeks. These are not different than what they have been. So we'll see. And she was like, okay, but I do think your body will naturally go into labor and you'll start progressing, start dilating within the next 24 hours. And then the midwife that I had seen the day before when I went in to check to make sure baby was all right, she came into the room. So I was really happy because then it's nice when you have like, you get to continue with the same people and they get to see how your story progresses and you get to, you're already familiar with them. And a light just died. Oh dear. Hold on, sorry guys. At this point, I'd been contracting for about an hour, but they had just been the contractions that were kind of like a pinching feeling where everything was like, ooh, like really tight and kind of pinching. And it's really, really uncomfortable, but not really, really painful yet, if you know what I mean. And so I was thinking, okay, I'm totally fine. This is not happening yet. Hopefully it'll be the next little while. The midwife, she leaves the room. She says she'll be back in an hour to check on me again to see if I progressed at all. And within 5 minutes, the contractions have completely stopped having pauses in between. And the pain has gone from about like a 4 or a 5 to about an 8. And I'm just like, oh, like you need to get here now. And I'm like pushing the button. So she comes in and she's like, oh, you've like changed, that's progressed that much in 5 minutes? And I was like, yes. So midwife goes to check me and the midwife, like she asks you, is it okay if I go in and check and see if you're dilated, or just tell me when you're ready? But I was contracting and I couldn't stop contracting. And so I couldn't talk and tell her. I just wanted her to go ahead so I could get the epidural. And then like, as soon as I could talk, I was like, yes, check, I just need the epidural as soon as I could. But it took like a full minute or two before I was able to actually respond to her and tell her like, go ahead and check, just because it's really hard to talk when you're having very like full-on contractions. She checks, she says I've progressed and that I can go into labor and delivery into like a proper delivery room. I'm just stoked. They get me set up. I can have the epidural right away, which, oh my gosh, that just changed everything. I didn't feel a thing afterwards. It was absolutely wonderful. My waters broke at 3 p.m. and by the time I was getting ready to push, it was 8:30 and something-ish. The epidural made the contractions so calm that I actually was able to talk to the guy who delivers packages to my house on the phone. He was like, hey, can you come down and get your package? And I was like, no, I'm delivering a baby right now. And he's like, oh, congratulations. And I was like, yeah, but my mother-in-law's there, so if you want to leave her with the package, that'd be great. And I was so excited. And then it came time for the pushing. I felt like a ton of pressure down there. It felt like I needed to go to the bathroom. This isn't something I shared on my French channel because I didn't know how to say it delicately, but I really felt like I needed to go to the bathroom. And she came over and she was like, okay, let me check you. And I was like, can I just use the ladies' room first? I really need to go to the bathroom. And she was like, all right, you're ready to push. And I was like, I don't really want to push. Can I use the toilet first and then start pushing? She was like, yeah, no, sweetie, that feeling is what it feels like when you need to push. And I was like, I'd heard from so many other moms and people had already been through this, that when they felt the need to push, it was like this urge, this instinct, and it made them really want to push. Mine had like the opposite effect. I was like, yeah, I don't know, no thank you. And we started pushing anyways. Obviously you have to go through that. That's what your body needs to do that. You need to start pushing baby out. As I go for like the first push, I can feel that the epidural has kind of worn off a little bit. And I asked her if I could get another dose before we get going. And she was like, no, sweetie, it's gonna take 15 full minutes for the epidural to even fully function. And by then you might already have your baby in your arms. As the baby was coming out and I was pushing, I could feel the ripping. That's another thing. I've heard a lot of moms say, oh, there's so much pressure down there at that point that you don't even feel when you tear and things like that. I felt it, girl. I would feel the tearing when they'd be like, oh, because you push on each contraction, or they'd be like, get ready to push. And I was like, okay. I was motivated because I knew I wanted baby out and I wanted baby to get here and I was done being pregnant. But when you can feel yourself like ripping, it's not a very motivating sensation, if that makes sense. So for me, that experience was really different than what I had heard for so many other moms. A little something that might happen to you, I hope not. But baby came out relatively quickly. I'm thinking about like 15-20 minutes. I'm not sure how long I pushed. It wasn't for an excessively long time, but it also wasn't as quick as it was for my daughter. I pushed her out in like 10 minutes because I had the epidural like on full blast and couldn't feel a thing. So I was super motivated to push really hard because it didn't hurt. Heck, I was just going for it. But this baby, I could feel it and it hurt, and so I was not really going for it. But I survived. Baby came, 3 kilos and 690 grams. Very cute little fella. He came out completely clean. Neither of my babies ever had like vernix when they came out, probably because they're so towards the end of the pregnancy. They came after the 40-week American due date. In France, the due date's actually 41 weeks. Interesting little fact. They put him on my chest. We got to do skin to skin for, I don't know, an hour or two. It was so wonderful. I was really happy. My husband was really happy. It was a beautiful little moment. The staff that was there was really awesome. And a little story that I forgot to tell when I was telling this on my French channel. Well, I was like pushing, right? So you've got the doctor, the gynecologist, and there were 2 midwives on each side. One of the midwives was like, I'm sorry, I just know you from somewhere. I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, I've seen your face. Like, I've definitely seen you before, and I'm trying to remember, where did you come in, like, earlier at the clinic? You know, maybe one of these days. And I was like, no. And she's like, did you do this or this at the clinic? And I'm like, And she's like, where do I know you from? And my husband's trying not to laugh, like, over in the corner. Eventually, I was like, do you watch a lot of YouTube? She was like, yeah, I do. And then the other midwife like lifted up her head and started laughing like, oh, you're a YouTuber? And I was like, kind of. Like, you might know me from there. And she was like, oh, I don't know if that's it or not, but it was a little awkward. So it's like, while I'm pushing, they're like looking down, they're like, oh, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, okay, let's not talk about that while I'm in this position. But they were so sweet, and it was awesome, and it was like a really good and positive birthing experience. I'm so grateful to live in 2017 and to have been accompanied by competent doctors and midwives, and to have been able to have had the epidural while I did, because my gosh, that saved me. Other than that, I am 1 month postpartum. I'm going to go in a few weeks for the 6-week checkup just to make sure everything is healing all right. But for the moment, things are going really great with baby at home. My daughter loves him. It's absolutely like wonderful moments as far as family goes. I'm a little discouraged at the moment because with my daughter, my pants were fitting a lot more quickly. And now we're getting into the winter season when it's cold and when I need to wear pants rather than dresses, or no one needs to wear pants, but I prefer to wear pants rather than dresses. Nothing fits. The bigger sizes end up being like too small in the waist, and they give me this huge like muffin top, like just ginormous. So they're too tight on top, and then they're way too loose in the thigh area because my legs didn't gain a lot of weight. My arms did. There's a couple of videos on my French channel where like after I filmed them, when I went back into the editing, I could see the chicken wing arms. So when I lifted up my arms to talk about a product or something, and they'd go like, and I'm just like, this is great. This is wonderful. Now I'm just chatting for chatting's sake. I love you all, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, comment, do whatever you'd like. I love you, and I can't wait to see you soon. Ciao.